Bronco, there's obviously been a lot placed on Bryce. There's a lot of faith put into him, and we've heard a lot of stuff about how vital he will be to this team. His numbers last year, besides getting to the championship game, were not like video game numbers. How much different do you expect that he will play under this system than the more kind of traditional quarterback role he played last year?
You know, I think it's to be determined. We certainly know what we want those numbers to be, and we think we know within the system and past performances within the system what that could be. I don't think anyone knows as of going into game one. We're still looking for a reference point, and that would be for all areas of our program. As much as any coach would like to say they know exactly where they are and what to expect in game one, I don't think anyone knows exactly what to expect. The bottom line, though, is our quarterback position will have to be exceptional for us to have a good year. That is the reality, and so rather than pretend, and Bryce is embracing those expectations, our job is to build his capability in relation to the demand appropriately and sequentially. And so my guess is game one won't look like game 13, but hopefully it looks exactly as it needs to for his role and his development and our team's development for the first game.
Is it unusual to have captains and not have your quarterback be one of them?
Not necessarily. I would say especially in the circumstance of a transfer. And so sometimes as a quarterback that's an underclassman, I think that's pretty typical as well. And so I would put those in the same category. And Bryce received significant support in the voting. But again, he's new, which is a little bit longer. He certainly has the respect of our team, but not the time yet. And when you compare that or contrast that to Jordan Ellis and Alameda, I wouldn't take it as a slight to Bryce. I would say the other two, I mean, who gets more votes than those guys? You know, I'm not sure it's possible.
You opened kind of your tenure against Richmond, and you talked so much in the weeks after that about the demeanor on the sideline, and the depth and the numbers in the program, and how much work you had. When you stop and think about that, how far have you come since that moment?
Well, yeah, I think the difference of a 2-10 season to a postseason appearance is the best way to describe it. It was probably the first and maybe most impactful recalibration in becoming the head coach at UVA on exactly where we were, was the start of that season. And it certainly, I'm not going to diminish the fact that it was against Richmond, but really it could have been any team. And me then seeing our team's demeanor in Scott Stadium, how exactly we were prepared or had been prepared to play a game, and maybe some of the existing influences that I wasn't aware of. And so we worked diligently and just step by step to recreate the culture of the love to play the game, the love to prepare to play the game, and claiming our home space at a higher level. It is still a work in progress, but I remember just the graphic starting point and recalibration of, oh, this is where we are. And that's what I remember most about maybe that game or that time period.
People had such a strong reaction to when you told the Board of Visitors there were X number of guys who were ACC ready, and whether it's developmental or where you are in that. Right now, where is that number in comparison, and are you happy with the progress you've made?
Yeah, I don't intend to have like a barometer and maybe like number of patient or number of customers served, you know, like at McDonald's or something. I mean, the reality is I'm transparent and I'm truthful, and especially with my players, and I won't share anything outside of our team room that I haven't shared with them. They know exactly where they stand and always will. They know exactly what I believe the truth is and always will, and they'll know. And I don't think you can have growth as a person, as a team, without knowing where you currently are. And so, and I intend to keep with that exact same format. But what I have learned is it's much more powerful within the team format, maybe than with outside, or sharing it outside where some don't want to understand or won't understand.
Coach, I think you've said you prefer to have a multi-talented quarterback.
Yes.
And you had an idea of what you were getting when you recruited Bryce. What has surprised you about him since he's gotten here and you've worked with him?
The biggest surprise is poise and consistency. A lot of times with the new players, especially at that position, man, day by day, there's way ups and way downs. With him, it's been more of just solid, steady decision making. There's still days of or plays of volatility, but I've been most surprised and impressed with consistency, especially demeanor. There'll be gigantic plays that he'll make, or maybe that we don't make, and he just matter-of-factly moves on. And so his poise and consistency, I think, will give him his best chance and our best chance, as there are ups and downs through the season and starting in game one, just to kind of follow our guiding principle of less drama, more work, which is what he is. And he didn't come in expecting accolades. He hasn't required any additional attention. He hasn't required any unique management. He just has been part of our team, and I think that's what's endeared him to our team. My hope is that his performance reflects that consistency of his demeanor, because if that happens, then it allows our team to have the earliest success possible. And as we all know, early season, especially with the ACC, is very, very important because wins are hard to get.
How much did the time that Richard, Bernie, and Mandy missed because of their injuries accelerate the development of Aaron and Jordan in particular?
Yeah, there was no one else. And so without Mandy and without Richard, we could not practice as a football team other than using first years and evaluating first years. And so Aaron Famui and Jordan Redmond got the majority of the work with not only the ones but the twos and every other group that we could put in there because we were out of defensive line bodies. And so the downside is we haven't had the consistency to have Bernie and Mandy and Eli all together and working consistently for all of fall camp. We'll get a few days of that before Richmond. But what we have done is been able to establish significant depth with first years, and they are still first years, but they've been developed. Their development has been accelerated to the point where they'll play significant amounts from game one all the way through the year. Is my prediction.
How would you describe the competition between Joey and Brenton and how it turned out? It looks like obviously Joey's at the top right now.
Yeah, and that's going to go back and forth daily, as well as within a game, as well as game by game. It's an exact reflection of what I would love to have at every position on our team. I think it makes them both better. It also, you'll see certain situations where they're used in a little bit more relation to their skill set. So I view that position as my ideal for our team. There aren't many positions that are like that currently, but if you're saying what do I see in the future, it would be a reflection of that.
And has there been a resolution to the Dylan Thompson situation?
Dylan Thompson, the status with that is he passed his course at Ohio State. He has graduated. He is here. He just finished his second acclimation day, and so he's behind, obviously, but he is here, and so he's practiced with us for 2 days. He'll finish his acclimation days. He'll have to learn our system. Obviously, it's hard to play without knowing what to do. And then he'll be integrated as he's ready and as he earns his way in. But it is a position of need. It'll be really unique to follow how fast that matriculation happens. But I thought it was unlikely that he would arrive, and I thought it was unlikely he would be on our team. And so that's been an added bonus. Again, but he's been here only 2 days so far, so we'll see how that comes along.
Coach, you've talked a lot about your depth in the secondary, but receiver is definitely Richmond's deepest position as well. What have you seen out of those guys on film? Productive,
Consistent, confident, and they make a lot of plays. There's 3 of them that have 60 catches or more, with a quarterback that, while he redshirted a year ago, proved capability in the playoffs before then. I really like their offensive system. I think the league that Richmond plays in, and William and Mary and JMU, I think it's a really good league. And so I don't think good football is tied to perceived level. I think good football is good football. And I think the majority of teams in that league, they play good football. They're coached well. There's good talent. The biggest difference is they're just not as deep, numbers of scholarships. But I like their receivers a lot. I like their quarterback. I like their system. And the other thing is they have a history and they know how to win. And those are the expectations, and that's kind of just part of their identity. So, yeah, I like the test. It'll be a good one.
And among those top 3 receivers they have, is there one guy that you've kind of keyed that this is the matchup that we got to stop him?
Not necessarily. And I think maybe that's why and certainly their quarterback from a year ago, I watched him in the Senior Bowl as well, and I was very impressed with him. So the system is good, their personnel is strong, their quarterback and those 3 receivers, and I think they have 2 excellent running backs as well. So I think they've done a nice job with their personnel and their system. But I think the simple key is the more that you focus on one of the receivers, the other 2 then become capable and more dynamic. And the workload's been spread pretty evenly, and I don't think that's by accident. So you have to defend them all.
You've got a lot of receivers, obviously. Chuck Davis is on the depth chart. He's also on the depth chart at punt returner. I think he worked behind Daniel Ham there last year. Just where's he at in his progress to kind of come out of the blue here and be in those spots?
He just has labored behind the scenes, and he just keeps making plays. There's no one that we trust to catch a punt more than Chuck Davis. So if you're saying, who do you put out there if you're just positive the ball has to be caught, which is basically every time, right? But sometimes there's a trade-off for someone's catching ability with possibly what you might get after the catch. If it comes down to ensuring the ball is caught, Chuck Davis is that person. We can put our entire team around him. We can put wind in his face with fans. We can play music. We can blindfold him. He just catches the ball, which makes a head coach sleep better at night. And then at receiver, and today he was working against our defense, and he just makes play after play, kind of regardless of circumstance. So steady and kind of a journeyman backup that I wouldn't be surprised to see on the field for us at some point, and maybe a significant role if he keeps doing what he's doing.
Bronco, you talked earlier about comfort in your home space, and I think you said last year that you never get involved in trying to get fans to come out and just kind of let the results speak for themselves. But if there's 45,000 people there on Saturday and 15,000 empty seats, is there a way in the way your mind works that you use that to try to, you had success last year, went to a bowl game, to try to use that to drive, drive the team to prove to more people and make them come?
Oh, we know exactly what has to happen. We need to win, and we need to win the right way at UVA. And luckily that aligns with exactly my philosophy. I want exceptional people, exceptional students that play great football. And when that happens, it's hard not to come. And it changes, it invigorates the community. It's a vibrant place to be on a Saturday. And there's a sense of pride and accomplishment that comes with being a UVA alum, someone that lives in this state, that, man, there's something cool happening in Charlottesville. And we're a work in progress. That is the direction. And whatever the attendance will be a direct reflection on how much our philosophy and our success has been embraced to this point. So I'll just take it as feedback. And I don't get my feelings hurt. It's just, it gives clear feedback as to room to grow and ways to continue to expand and claim those spaces and connect with our fans through, again, kind of the earn not given philosophy. I think that stadium and our stadium will be full when we're playing football in a manner that allows it to be full. And so we'll just keep working.
A couple depth chart questions, if you don't mind taking us through. Chris Glazer, when did he make that move, and what was it about Ryan Nelson's play that made you think, hey, that's a guy we can trust at left tackle?
Just time and consistency. The edge has become more secure day after day after day after day through the beginning of fall camp, now going into game week. And so you're always, especially at the offensive line, you're looking to have the best 5. And that usually means a player that can play 2 spots and sometimes 3. Glazer can play center, he can play guard, and he can play tackle. So if you look at the 2 deep and say, man, there's first years or we're kind of thin, you could really insert Glazer at 3 different positions, which then that makes it look better. And so Glazer's really versatile. His versatility we've been able to highlight that because of how Nelson has played from beginning of camp through to where we are now. And so those 2 things are dependent on each other.
And really the exact same question on the other side with Handback moving over to end. What do you like there? And what did Redmond do to make you think he's the guy?
Well, it's been out of necessity because Bernie and Mandy Alonso have not been practicing and have not been healthy. And as we continue then to look at, okay, what first years and what might be our best combination, it became apparent that Jordan Redmond at nose tackle was a little bit farther along than possibly other first years. And so now looking at who might and what allows us to have our best 3D linemen on the field, just like O-line, what gives us our best 5 on the field at the same time, Redmond's ability to play nose and Eli's ability to play end now gives us more depth with the same number of bodies.
Last year, your field goal game was not very productive. What kind of competition did you have with this group?
The competition's ongoing. One of the bright spots through camp, earlier than what has happened recently, I would say, A.J. Mejia started exceptionally well through camp. First 2.5 weeks especially, the sound of the ball coming off his foot, it made our whole coaching staff and team stop, and it sounds different, and it was going through the uprights more consistently and from farther away. So I would say what I've seen so far in practice settings is the field goal range has been expanded and the consistency has increased. And so those are good things. Now what's happening with Hunter Pearson returning to full health, which is we're almost there. There's starting to be now the possibility of a longer range kicker and a shorter range kicker. Hunter Pearson's range is longer than AJ's, and AJ is more consistent from a little bit closer. So there is a reality now of a Mejia range and then possibly another range that, based on how much data we can keep getting in on consistency and percentages, that'll determine whether we're going for it, in this range of the field or Pearson comes out to take a shot. And I haven't decided that yet, but that could be a possibility.
We've all heard and seen a little bit of how Bryce can kill you with his legs. How has he developed as a passer over the past year, and how much better do you think he is now than he was when you got him?
Yeah, I'm hesitant in practice just to make definitive statements, but that's the area that he has improved most. It's the area that our team has improved most since Bryce arrived, where the majority of the ball being moved early on in Bryce's career with us through spring and early fall was happening with his ability to run. More balance is coming daily with his ability to throw the football and us to catch and protect. And so we're a lot harder to defend when you can do both. And so I would say that we're making significant strides in that area. And so in direct answer to the question of where have we grown most, his decision-making and accuracy in throwing the football is probably where the biggest gains have been made.
Bronco, when we met with Carla, one of the things she talked about was making a real concerted effort to bring football alumni back to the program. Most of those guys aren't your guys. What's the impact been of that? How much has there been an uptick in that, and how much has the team maybe benefited from that?
I think there's been a significant uptick because there's been a significant emphasis uptick, and Carla has done a really nice job with that. And I think I think that the players might take offense to saying they're not my guys. I would say they're our guys, but I do understand what you're saying because I wasn't their coach. The ones that have interest in coming back, though, it's been fun because they consider this their program. I'm currently the steward over the program and of the program. I really want it to be something that they're proud of and support and love the results. And I'd love to run it in that way. That matters to me, that they're proud of what we're doing and like what we're doing. And I would say the overwhelming majority that have come back have shared that, but they're coming back because they are UVA. And I'm appreciative of that. Our team is appreciative of it. And in a team meeting this morning, in fact, I believe the number was, as part of our team meeting, there were 22 former UVA players that were Super Bowl champions. And there's been some very special people on the field, and man, there have been some amazing people off the field in terms of what they've accomplished. And that, in essence, is what UVA football is. I want the success on the field desperately. I also want those successes off the field and quality lives too. And so the players that are coming back, they see that and it resonates, and they're aligned with that. And I think that helps make us each other's guy, even though I didn't coach them.
This is a little off the beaten path, but Northern Virginia, we've seen a few high schools cancel their football season. In New Jersey, a few high schools have canceled their football season because of lack of interest. They didn't have the numbers turning out. As a person who's working in football, obviously passionate about the sport, does that concern you, and what can you do to kind of impact that?
Sure, it concerns me. In the relation, or in this perspective, I think my opinion is that football is an amazing vehicle and platform to develop young people. Other than that, it's just a game, and I'm not interested in it being just a game, but it saddens me that a platform or a vehicle to develop people is not being supported. And I think what has to happen from my standpoint, as well as other college coaches, is to make a clear emphasis that matters. Yes, winning is important. There is a strong business element and entertainment element. That's where the business, viewership is driving college football. I stand on a very different side of that, acknowledging the reality of that. My primary purpose is develop people so they can have amazing lives. And when football goes away anywhere, that saddens me, and I would like, if it goes away, I'd like the community or possibly the administration to have to acknowledge by what they see in other coaches and programs that, wait, are we really going to let this happen at the expense of development? And I think possibly the perspective is results only, and I certainly think that some of the safety issues are contributing or have contributed, and so I think there's an interplay there. And I think effective coaching and quality coaching is the development of people, looking after the welfare and safety of student athletes, and getting results. And I don't see enough emphasis on all of that being presented. And I think you probably don't either, just if you look at what's written in about our business. And so I would love this program to be one that clearly shows that development, safety, welfare, and results can happen at the same time.
Coach, Jerry was referencing Bryce's ability to run. When you think about guys like Tavares Kelly, Billy Kemp, Olamide Zaccheaus, Bryce now, even on the defensive side of things with Juan and Darius Bratton, you've seen very successful football, and team speed is typically an emphasis. How pleased are you with where your team speed is right now? We
are establishing depth and speed. And so some of the players that you just mentioned in Tavares and in Billy Kemp and now in Bryce coming at quarterback, those are all new players to the program. And there are others as well. And so it's just reflective of possibly inroads being made to address depth in this program, and it's become more visible in the secondary and at receiver and skill. That is accelerating faster than our depth in the lines. And so even though there'll be first years listed on O-line and D-line, most likely you'll see impact. The impact that we'll see will probably be through the speed rather than the trenches, even though there'll be first years playing in both places.
Coach, both you guys in Richmond are transitioning from over pro-style offense to an RPO-based offense. As much as it can, given the disparity in scholarship players, does that kind of even the field a little bit on Saturday?
Yeah, I don't. So I've coached against a number of FCS programs in my career, and coached Northern Arizona myself, and we never felt, when I was coaching at Northern Arizona and the FCS level, we really never felt much difference between ones. It was just the depth. And when you play a first game especially, anyone is especially vulnerable, and there's always uncertainty because there's new teams, certainly new schemes and adjustments that have been made in the off season, and you're never certain. And so, man, the amount of in-game coaching, especially in game one, that's part of game one. And so I think possibly that's why, and I haven't done the research on this, you could follow up. It seems to me like games 1 and 2, there's maybe more upset-ish type of games, and a game that happens to say, holy cow, did you hear about so-and-so? That shouldn't happen. The simple uncertainties that come with game 1 and game 2, I think, add to that.
You mentioned that depth. You've been where Coach Huseman is. I believe he only has 84 players on the roster. What additional challenges does that provide?
Practice for long seasons, especially when you're a relatively consistent playoff team. Man, it's where the redshirt rule really helps now in terms of adding to your roster, but more games with the same number of players or more games with even fewer numbers, practice becomes really difficult. And then you end up having to choose, do you become more NFL model-ish where you're serving each other? And that's fine, just the number of practice reps you get is lessened because you're still under time requirements. So, yeah, unique trade-offs, but the quality of football that's being played is still very, very good. And so a lot of the innovations that happen with reduced numbers is some of the best coaching I think that there is.
Given that you were talking about the new redshirt rule, you have these 2 backup quarterbacks who theoretically could really, still play and take advantage of that. Is there one of them, Lindell or Brennan, that you feel like you want to see in this opportunity?
Man, I think that's a fair question. There's all kinds of scenarios, and I hope we don't get to see our backup quarterbacks much. And I know that there's a developmental part that I sacrifice because of that, but because Bryce is a transfer, every rep counts for him, and he needs every one he can get. And so you will probably see us, and it's a delicate balance. And if you put us in the context, let's say we have a comfortable lead. Again, every rep's still helpful for him in the game context to develop our team, then there's risk of injury. If he does get hurt, then yeah, you need to develop a backup soon enough and capably. And so I'm still erring on the side of Bryce's development because it's a new quarterback and it's game 1 with a long season to go. In terms of backups, we're going to be slower than quicker to insert is where we are at this point.
Take our last 2 questions from Hank and Jerry.
Do you find yourself in practice watching Bryce on some of these runs, just mind-boggling kind of stuff, and you can't contain your own excitement?
Well, I'm an excitable guy, so there might be a corner of my mouth that comes up. It's just fun to watch an amazing athlete. There will be comparisons made, but there's just the athleticism, the change of direction, and how dynamic. It's just it's pretty special to be able to see, especially when it comes in the packaging a good player and a good person. That makes it better. And so that's what makes maybe both corners of my mouth go up. The long run might make one corner go up, but then when I think about who he is, it might be both corners.
Bronco, based on what you just said about backup quarterbacks, where are they in terms of if something happened and they had to play, how much of an about face would that have to be in how you play, or are they both capable of playing and doing what you want Bryce to do?
Yeah, Brennan is more aligned in terms of what Bryce does, and it would require less change within what we're doing offensively. Lindell currently is more polished, more experienced, and farther, but the style of play would be different. And so we've had to prepare for both. The context of the game and what's required, if we're playing from behind and possibly need to throw and catch at a higher level, then probably Lindell. If it's more, it's about even and we still want to play the same style, then it's probably Brennan. And that's the simplest way to describe it right now. Okay, thanks. All right, thanks, everybody.